welcome to Kerbal Space Program Career Mode Walkthrough Review, best of trying to survive and make it into outer space with these guys. This is one of those games, if you haven't tried it, you just got to, and it's one that I think anyone would like that if they put some time to really understand how it fits together. It's really fun, and we're going to enjoy going through career mode here, just winging it, doing the best we can. I'm not going to try to play this perfectly. We're going to take the consequences as they come. We're going to see spaceships blow up. We're going to see planes crash. We're going to see setbacks, and hopefully we won't see it, but these guys are going to be at a lot of extreme risk in some of these experiments. So let's get started with our space program. Hit start game, and we're going to start a new one. And we want career mode. I definitely think you got to try career mode at least once. And let's just say we're going to call this guy Kerbal. Let's see, what was it? What was it? Jeremiah was one of them. But anyway, we're going to just say Kerbal 1, we'll call him. And for difficulty options, I'm going to go ahead and open this so you can see it. There's a lot of choice here and a lot of things to make it harder. You can definitely click hard. You'll notice that this says allow reverting flights, allow quick loading, missing crews respawn. So there's a lot of things that happen. If we change it to moderate, which I think we can go ahead and do it on moderate. We'll take it, we're not going to just do it on normal, we'll do it on moderate. You'll notice that it still allows for quick loading, it still allows for reverting flights, and those are critical because if you don't have those and you lose everything in a flight that gets blown up and you can't revert back, that's when you click hard and you see that you don't have those things. We're going to do this one on moderate. If this one is well liked and people are subscribing and this is like, hey, I want to see this guy try it on hard and you know, fail miserably and watch me destroy a space program in a matter of a few days or weeks, I'm sure, then we could do some videos on hard. But let's go ahead and try this on moderate because I'm sure that we're going to see enough setbacks here on moderate. So let's accept this, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so you get some introduction here. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, maybe you've seen some other videos, maybe you haven't. I'm going to assume that you're still pretty new to Kerbal and you're wanting to see somebody, take it from the beginning. And so they have some, information here that says, this is Gene Kerman, flight director, your guide for this quick introduction. So this is our space center. It actually already looks pretty cool. In the earlier versions, it didn't even look this cool at the beginning. But we know we have our place here where we build. I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that. But we got our place here where we can build our spacecraft. This is where we build space planes and winged basically airplanes that take off from this landing strip. So this is the landing strip right here. We got our launch pad here where our actual space vehicles will launch from. We've got over here our mission control center. That's this right here. I clicked on it and it's telling you this is the tracking station facility is what they call it. I called it mission control center, but this would show all of our missions, and when missions are in progress we can see what's going on. You can see our cool view of the Earth there. This is just at the very beginning of our introduction here. We've got our astronauts let's see what they call it actually. So this is like basically the astronaut facility where we can get our applicants for new astronauts. You can see here are our current astronauts. We've got 4 of them. Jebediah, Bill, Bob, and Valentina. So they're all ready to fly. And then over here, this little tiny building, you can barely see it right here. This is our tech tree. Now, this is the cool part of Kerbal Space Program, is that you'll notice that right here we've just basically got our starting research and with that comes these parts. So we got a basic fin, a command pod, a solid fuel booster. We got a containment unit for mystery goo, some kind of modular girder segment, and finally a parachute, which we'll need to recover back. So you can see we don't have very much of a space program here. We literally got 6 parts is all we have. And then to get basic rocketry, we've got to get some research. And that you'll see that little star 5 there by basic rocketry. We got to get that. We have 0 now in order to unlock a liquid fuel engine, a solid fuel booster, and a fuel tank. And then also under Engineering 101, this next part of the branch, you'll see we can unlock a cockpit, a Science Junior, a communitron, which is like an antenna to transmit data, and a stack decoupler. And this decoupler is real important for creating stages for our rockets. So I'm by no means an expert here, but that's like the basic view of it. This is what we're starting with. So let's see if we go here. This building's interesting because this is actually mission control, they say. And this is where we get our contracts. And you can see we got a contract here available that says launch our first vessel. And I'll let you guys read the briefings, but basically I'll read this. We'd like to officially start off the space program with a bang, a very controlled bang, preferably. So we basically need here in our objectives, and you'll always want to read these objectives, launch your first vessel off the launch pad or the runway to achieve the goal. And always take these objectives very literally. They're not saying we have to get to 1,000 feet or 10,000 feet or get into orbit or anything like that. They're just saying we have to launch the first vessel off the launch pad. So let's grab that one. We'll accept that contract. You'll notice that we can only have a maximum of 2 because our mission control center now is very limited. Now, we're not ready to probably escape the atmosphere yet, but it says we can gather scientific data from Kerbal, and it says recover or transmit any scientific experiment data from Kerbal to achieve this goal. Now again, this doesn't mean that we have to go high into space. It just means data from Kerbal. So we're going to try this by accepting this contract. And what we're hoping is, we've got a max of 2, is that we can satisfy both these contracts with a single launch that's going to be very minimal. And now the fun part, we got our advance. We actually got some money ahead for trying these contracts. And if I click on this, this is our first introduction to the area where we build our rockets. It's empty here. And then he's saying, welcome to the vehicle assembly building. And I'm just going to ignore his help and just walk you through it because that's why you're watching the video. You'll notice that over here on the far left we got different categories of parts. So we got by default the pods. So we got our command pod, and if I click on say engines, we can see our solid fuel booster. If I scroll down a little further under aerodynamics, we got a fin. Under utility, we got our parachute, and these will keep filling up with more and more things. As you saw from that tech tree, we're going to have more and more things that we're going to be able to use to build into outer space. But we just need to satisfy our contracts, and if you'll notice down here on the lower right, we can look at our contracts here while we're building and see that we need to launch our vessel, and under note here it'll say launch your first vessel off the launch pad or the runway to achieve this goal. So we're going to do this off the launch pad. We're just going to launch it. And now look, there's some of these other goals here that I missed when I was in mission control. They were there, I just didn't click on the right tab. But if we get to 3,500 feet, that's going to mean that we achieve a goal. If we get to 5,000 meters, I should say, not feet, meters, we're dealing in metric here. And this is a distance record, means that we need to get 5,000 meters from here. We have a speed record that we could set of 150 meters per second. So now I'm going to jump out of here real quick so you can see. If I click off and back onto here, and I look under active, you'll see that we have a lot of active contracts. Now it shows active contracts too, but some of these I guess are just milestones. These are just kind of like gimmies. These will go away quick. They'll be done fast, but you'll see that we're going to get you know, money for these. You know, this is our money right here. This little Kerbal funds, I guess you'd say. So we get, you know, an advance. That was our for our the one we accepted, but like under speed record, when we complete this, we're going to get a little bonus for that, for just going. If we need to get into orbit, we need to go faster, break the current speed records by getting a vessel up to 150 meters per second. So no vehicle on this planet has ever gone faster than 150 meters per second before. We're going to break that speed record. And no body before, no vessel has ever gone above 3,500 meters. That is higher than we have ever gone before. So this is kind of cool. This is Kerbin's world's first record-keeping society. We're going to break those records. We'll break them pretty quick, actually. So let's make a little rocket that's going to break some of those records and collect some of science data that we need to expand. And so I click here accidentally, even on command pod. It's just such a habit that you just click on here and you get your command pod. So this is where the Kerbal is going to be. And if I go here to crew, we can see that it's already assigned Jebediah Kerman. He's going to be the first, you know, Kerbal in space, you know, for us. And not just we're not going to make it into space here. We're just trying to get off the ground. We're going to try to barely make it, because you'll see by engines here, we've only got this solid fuel booster, and we can now, by clicking on it, you'll notice if I drag it out here, I can snap it. It'll kind of just snap into place, and you'll see it turn green when I do. See it change from red. I'm not attached. Now I'm green. Boom, attached. And this is an itty bitty rocket, but we really can't build anything bigger because we have no separators. Under structural here, yeah, we could build and attach a bunch of these things together, actually, and probably go higher. But we won't do that. We're just going to keep this real simple like that. And let's go ahead and just see how you can put these little fins on it. So I can click fin and click, but that only add one fin. And so we don't want to just add one fin. If you'll notice down here in the lower left, there's a symmetry mode. I can go here and click it once to add 2, and then a third time to add 3. And this way I can add 3 fins to give it, you know, a little bit more of aerodynamic integrity. If I had to add those individually, I'd never get them, you know, quite so even, and they're really not as even as they should be. So I can click on it again and bring it back, and maybe click here, or maybe better is line it up with this. You know, notice how you have these 2 you know, parallel lines coming out of here. Those are kind of like important in a sense, because we want this to be even for the purposes of getting that into orbit later. You'll see how important it is that things are even. So for now it won't matter so much, but we got these you know, fins on, and they're pointed as I right click. I'm using my right mouse button to move around in 3D space here. I've got this, you know, pointing out towards you know, this direction. Now we need one more thing. Let's go ahead and add a parachute to this. We're going to go ahead and add that parachute. And you'll notice also too that there is this mystery goo containment unit. Now it'd be simple to, you know, just ignore it, but I think we want to go ahead and bring it with us, because science is so important, and that's what this does, is it collects science. So we're going to click on it, and we don't need 3 of them, but we want it balanced. So let's have 2, 1 here and 1 there, and we'll move it kind of high up, because it kind of just helps the balance of our rocket to have this. And I should say later it'll help even more when we have a separator, and we're going to, you know, separate these 2. And we have to remember, we can't separate our pod from our engine at this point. We don't have the necessary technology to do that. These two are like fused together. That means we need to limit how high we go. It almost makes me a little nervous that there's no limit now. What I can do is I can come down here. If I right click this, I can have our thrust limiter so it's limited, so it doesn't go all the way to 100. We're kind of risking this guy a little bit by sending it all the way up 100 possibly. We're going to go ahead and do it, but I'm just going to point out to you that if we fail and we lose this guy, we have to decide, you know, if we just accept the loss or not. But you'll notice that we could have limited the thruster, or we could have limited the amount of fuel that's in it. And if I'm going to show you just here how tied together things are. If you look down here at the lower left corner, this is how much it costs us to build this rocket. We got 2,897 Kerbal dollars in this. If I remove, you know, these, look how much cheaper it is. You know, so it costs us to have these on there and put them. But the idea is that we're collecting science data, and we need that science data to advance and get better technology. And you'll see what I mean once they're in orbit, or even on the launch pad. We can actually get value from these on the launch pad. But I just wanted to show you that cost, but also look at this cost too. If I right click our fuel booster and I move this, notice how in the lower left that it's 2872 now, but if I move this fuel down, now it's only 2830. So it's actually including the cost of the fuel in our cost of this rocket. This won't affect it. This is just how much thrust we have. So we're going to go ahead and leave all this here. Hopefully we won't go so high that it kills it. Now there's one more thing we have to do. You'll notice down here in the lower right, this is our stages, and that when we fire the rocket off, that we also, at this time, the way this is set up, it's going to also fire off the parachute. We don't want that. We need to hit plus here and drag this rocket engine down here. So the rocket engine is going to fire off. It's going to take us up into, you know, towards orbit, take us up in, hopefully maybe we'll make it up, you know, 7, 8, 9,000 feet. That should be okay. It shouldn't hurt him here. Now hopefully we need to kind of get our trajectory over the water, hopefully, because this is going to be a rough landing, because we got the weight of this as part of what this parachute has to have, and we don't have any. That's kind of what's really limiting us from, you know, adding a lot more to this and pushing it higher, is that we'd fall hard and fast and we wouldn't have enough parachute to recover. But we're going to have a stage here, at least, where we fire the rocket. It's going to go up, and then we'll have a separate stage here. And you'll notice how, if I mouse over them, notice how it turns the items green in the user interface. That's kind of important, because later on, when you got a really complex rocket, you're going to want to be able to mouse over this and see, you know, how that affects that. So now, let's go ahead and just verify everything. You always want to do a last minute verification. We got our crew, it's Jebediah. We got our stage fixed. We got our rocket, our parachute, our goo. So we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and launch. See what happens. Alright, so you'll see there's this big green launch button. Before we do that, let's go ahead and hit save, and we're going to give this, actually let's give this a name. We're going to call this our first launch. And we can get save, and this saves our little, you know, spaceship for later. Not a bad idea. Now we're going to hit launch, and this is going to take us to our launch pad. Exciting, our very first launch. Now look how little our launch pad is. It looks pretty rough here. This is, you know, early on in our space career. We don't have a very healthy space program. All right, but before we launch, you'll notice that right now it shows us at 69 meters. That means that, you know, just like in real Earth space idea, is that this is reading off of sea level. So we're 69 meters above sea level here on our launch pad. You'll also notice that here at the bottom is a, like a HUD that shows our, orientation. And over here on the left is our throttle, and this won't matter for this because this is a solid state rocket. Okay, and so I notice that I do have a little bit of conflict with my hotkeys here when I turn on and off my screen recorder, but we'll get through this video and then we'll worry about that later in episode 2 because we want to get our launch. Okay, so now let's, it's as simple really as hitting spacebar and this thing's going to launch off. And so I'm going to zoom back just a little bit by using my zoom out. And you'll notice that we got right here our meters per second. So we're going to be watching that. That's our speed right here. And this is our altitude. So those are two things we'll really keep an eye on this time when we launch. So when I hit space, it's going to fire off this stage. So here we go. And there we're up. And you can see we're now we just crossed 500 meters. We're at 1,000. This is our fuel. So we're already out of fuel. There was no real worry about going too high here. You'll see that we've achieved a record, it says down here, and you'll see that our altitude as we go up at some point is going to stop going up and we'll reverse and stop going down once the momentum, the gravity starts pulling us down. So here pretty soon we're getting to 7,000, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. All right, we're up there now. While we're up here, let's go ahead and right click this and say observe the mystery GRU. And notice we got 6.3 science here. I just decided to do that and I'm going to grab it. So we got it from up here on that one. And now I'm going to hit, and we can check our parachute status and see if it's safe to deploy it. It is safe to deploy it. We can see our meters per second is increasing. So let's go ahead and hit spacebar to deploy our parachute. And that's going to, deploy the parachute here. Now we are going to land on the ground. I really don't like that, but we'll probably be okay. And at some point, once it gets down a little further, it'll flip around. And I think it just does that so we don't have to spend a lot of time watching it fall, when it's much, much, much higher. But you'll see that we're falling. And ideally, the rule is, you'll see this down here. It says 6.8 to 7. We're 6.5. This is how fast we're falling with this parachute. I can zoom out a little bit and you can see the shadow. Helps kind of see when we're going to hit. Get some perspective on us falling after our first mission here. Ideally, this would be 5 or less. So hopefully we won't blow up and it'll just fall here, but we'll see. Okay, it was kind to us. We're okay. We landed fine. Couple of things to check out. Notice that we got this other mystery goo container. We can say observe that mystery goo. And we get 2.7 science. We don't get quite as much because we've already got some science, but this is how we collect science data. So notice it says 2.7 science, and it's got this green bar here. And if we transmit it, it says we can transmit 30% of this data without having to actually bring it back. That's more important later. We're on the ground now. But that's just important to keep in mind that later what this means is when you're out in space, you can transmit it back and get 30% of the value rather than keeping it and actually bringing it back. Another thing we can do is we can right click this crew hatch and say crew report. So let's do a crew report. And notice it doesn't get us a lot. It just says 1.4 science. You record the crew's assessment of the situation. But every little bit counts now, so we'll keep that data as well. And now notice over here at the top right we have a 5 and all these green check boxes. Now these are really good things that have happened. So I'm going to click on one of them here. And notice how it says we set a altitude record of 3.5 or 3,500 meters. Altitude record reached, well done. We got money for that plus some reputation. That's a reputation there. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that away. Now we got money for going faster than 450 meters per second. We also got some money for going faster than 300 meters per second. We also got some money for going faster than 150 meters per second. So we beat a lot of speed records. We also launched our first vessel. It says a very nominal launch. We could have asked for more. We could have, and we will at some point. Now it looks like we missed one of our objectives here. If I go back up here, we didn't do something. We didn't get our scientific data. Recover or transmit any scientific data from Kerbal to achieve this. Now we'll probably get this when we do the recover, because notice how it says recover or transmit. So we're just sitting here on the ground. We now need to recover our vessel, and this is basically them going out and picking everything up. You'll notice that now we got this contract complete here. We'll look at that after we get through here, but we can see now the science. We gathered 5 data from our crew report. We got 10 data, but 1.4 science. We got mystery goo 2.7 science. We also got, notice, mystery goo observation while flying at Kerbal. So we got, because we were in a different place, we got different science. So we actually got more science because it's more valuable being in space. And we also recovered a vessel that survived a flight. We got some science for that because that's the first time we did it. We won't keep getting science for this stuff. We only get it like the first time we've done it. Now we also recovered some parts too, and you'll see that we recovered all of our command pod, recovered all of our solid fuel booster. We recovered a basic fin here. And so it shows everything we've recovered and the value of everything recovered. So we recovered quite a bit. And then the crew, we can see that Jebediah gained 1 experience point. We're done. So now look, we've got up here at the top, we can see we've got 24.9 science points. If we come down here, you'll see that we've got basic rocketry and we've got engineering. That we get both of these now for 5 science each. So we need them both. Let's go ahead and grab this one, and that's going to give us our liquid fuel engine, a solid rocket booster, and a fuel tank to fuel our engine. So we're going to research that. And notice how when I did that, it unlocked these areas. Now we have 19.9. We don't have enough to unlock these, but if we did, I could spend 20 to unlock this. And I believe I've done that before, and that's not necessarily a bad strategy. As you can see that you can get even a better liquid fuel engine, a nice rocket booster, fuel tank, put you way up there. But if you go down here under engineering, you'll see that we get this science junior, and this is important because this is going to let us collect science, which will help us unlock more of the trees. So we definitely want this. We definitely want the ability to transmit. We want our stack decoupler. We can start making other stages. So we're going to also now research this. And you'll see that we got our parts here, researched. And you'll notice it says purchase 4 parts, and we actually purchase them. But it kind of does that for you. You don't have to do this through this interface here. As you use these parts, it'll charge you for them in the next interface. But that's something I think on this level that you have to do. You actually have to pay to use these parts, where on the easier levels you don't. Now notice, now we can see like the information from that. The money we got, the research, which that really helped us and added to it. Now we already got that, so that's part of this 14.9 and our 21 prestige. So now that we've done that, let's go back and click on here, and we'll see that we still got active contracts to get 7,500 meters. We almost hit that last time. We can get our distance record by basically, flying further out. And then, our speed record, we may or may not be able to hit that with our current technology. But notice how we have 0 active contracts. Notice that escape the atmosphere is 1, and it's going to give us 16,000 more advanced, more science, and also then the very next contract is orbit. So we'll actually get into orbit. Now, I was hoping to get into orbit in our first video here, but I'm not sure we're going to make it. But let's see if we can't unlock another tier. We only need a little more than 5 more And we really need that 5 experience, or 5 science more, so we can maybe unlock a little bit more to, to actually escape the atmosphere and orbit Kerbin. Since these are the only 2 available, I think we're gonna consider taking them soon. But let's go ahead and see if we can't make a launch that gets us closer. We're gonna get money for these, enough to cover our costs. So if we can get our speed records and we can make these happen, we're gonna have enough money to cover, our costs. So let's jump in here to look at what we can now build out on and try to satisfy. Now, we can still use this command pod. If I click this, I can pull this down. But notice here how we have a bigger rocket booster. We probably won't use this one now. This one's tinier. We have a bigger one we can use, this hammer. So let's use that one. And let's also notice if we go down here under science, we've got this science junior. So let's okay, so now this is true. We haven't bought this part yet. We have to purchase this by right-clicking and go down here to purchase. So this is new a little bit to me because I played on the level before where I didn't have to purchase these. But now I had to purchase that so I can use it. But now we can slap that Science Junior on here. And now here's where our first decoupler comes in, is that we really don't want to bring back all the weight of our boosters and everything. So we're going to go here to our structural tab by left clicking here and clicking on our stack decoupler, and we're going to have to right click again and purchase this. Now we can click and add it and separate these out. Now later we'd hope to have like a heat shield or something between these two, so we're going to have to dump these out not too high up. If we get these too high, we're going to be in trouble. So we're going to try to set a better height, but with the extra weight, because this is going to add extra weight to our rocket, that's going to offset somewhat having this bigger engine that we also have to buy. So we're going to purchase this solid rocket booster, put it on there, and now let's go ahead and put some fins. Get some fins on this. Go ahead and stick with 3. This time we'll just line it up this way. It can go either way. And if I go back up to crew, notice that Jebediah's got some experience, but now I could switch out maybe one of these scientists or another pilot. Let's go ahead and use another pilot here because we don't have any real good control over this yet, and the pilots are going to give us a little better control. Later we won't be probably using pilots as much. Okay, now notice here on the right, I'm going to go back into parts mode, but notice here on the right we have at the lower right here our first stage. Now we have in between this decoupler, and so when this stage fires up, it's going to decouple these two, and there'll be a little explosive charge that'll push off this stage and separate these out, and then there'll be another step before we'll deploy our parachute, which is what we want. And we'll go ahead and leave our goo on there. I don't know how much we'll get from it, but we'll see. If we're up higher, we might get a little bit more science from that. Otherwise, we'll probably end up taking these off in our lower altitude stuff. But we're ready to go again. Let's go ahead and hit, we'll go ahead and call this Science Lab Launch. So we got our Science Lab on here. Now, I can actually think of a reason. Let's go ahead and switch out the, no, we can't really do that yet. We'll go ahead and leave this pilot in, but later we can actually, one of the things the scientists let us do is collect science multiple times without having to go back. But we're going to stick with a pilot for this one. And let's just see, for example, what we can do here. If I right click and say observe materials bay, and open up this science capsule, notice we already get 6.8 science right now just by, and we can say keep this data, and it's, so this is the data we've got. We can, when we go up and we in the atmosphere, we get more data, you know, up there as well. And let's just go ahead and observe the mystery goo out of curiosity, see what we get. Look, we get 2.7 mystery goo. We keep the data, and we've gained this science and we haven't even launched. Let's go ahead and just see if we get anything from the crew report. Yeah, we still get another 1.4 science from the crew report. Keep the data. Now I can click review report. Notice it shows what the report is, and I can go back here and review the data. We don't have anything to really transmit it, but watch what I can do here. I can go ahead and hit recover vessel, and we get 10.8 science earned because we basically were taking science experiments and valuable data just from the launch pad. Now we'll only be able to do this time. You know, later this data is not valuable, but just like in any science, we have to have a baseline. And right now we're basically, you can think of it as getting baseline data for our space program. So this summarizes the science we got, but now notice here that we recovered 4,377 funds and recovered parts. We've recovered this much, and we didn't gain any XP or reputation, but we did gain these funds. So look at this number, 4377. If I hit next and done, and I go back into our rocket, look at this, 4377. So we didn't spend anything. We just basically, we didn't spend any fuel, we didn't do any launch, we didn't do anything, but we got that science. So that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to waste a launch for science that we could just collect and now use and get benefit from. So let's go ahead and exit this. Back to our research center. Now I clicked on our research center and we've got 25 science. Now we have a little bit of a decision to make because we can get rocketry, we can get stability, or we can get survivability. Let's see what survivability gives us. Gives us a heat shield. That's definitely going to be important in the future. Gives us a radiator panel that'll help us displace heat. I've used these before, but I've gotten by without them. Micro landing strut. This is going to be very important when we land on our nearest moon, which is Moon, M-U-N, Moon. And then we also have a second moon on this planet called Minimus that we might land on first because it has less gravity. But we also have a radial mount parachute available, and we also have a service bay. So these are useful things, but for our current goals that we know is getting into orbit and getting out of the atmosphere, not so much, not much propulsion. Stability gives us a small nose cone, an aerodynamic nose cone, a winglet we could use to kind of make a little bit of a plane, and it gives us a radial decoupler. A radial decoupler is useful for like getting those solid booster rockets off of our main stage. Maybe we could create a more complex rocket with this, but if we go up here and we look at General Rocketry, here we get a bigger fuel tank and we get a solid booster rocket, plus we get a better engine, a swivel engine. Basically, like they said, it's a breakthrough here that lets us have better maneuverability. So it gives us thrust plus maneuverability, as opposed to this engine we've got. We haven't even used it yet, but it's not as flexible. So, and the tank is tiny. Oops, let me cancel this. But you'll see that this tank here is small. We might never even use this. I don't even know that we'll purchase this tank. It says it's a miniature fuel tank made to be even more adorable than its big brother, the T200. This is the T200. So this is what is probably our best science investment. So we're going to get better fuel tank, we're going to get a solid rocket booster, and we're going to get a liquid fuel engine. So I'm going to research that and close this up. And I think with that, I'm going to end this video because it is getting rather long. We've had 2 launches, we've researched a lot of stuff, but now when we come back, we're going to build a new rocket. Let's go ahead, just so we have some goals, we leave with some goals. We're going to go ahead and accept this escape atmosphere because now we have the means to do that. And we're going to go ahead and accept orbit Kerbal. We may have the means to do that already. And you'll see that that leaves us with 154,000 Kerbal bucks. We only have 5.7 science because we spin it, but we've already, as you can see here, unlocked some of our tree. Look how much more we've got in career mode to cover. That's why we got to break it into multiple episodes. So hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. But when we come back, we're going to build some more new awesome rockets and get even higher into space.